Hi.
Hear me now? Hi.
Yes. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always.
Um,
I always love to talk with new people. How many kids do you have?
so I have one.
Same.
And yeah, so I was actually stalking you a bit, and I think you and your son are so adorable. And like watching his interview about his costumes and everything, I was like, he's like a grown-up version of my son. Like he likes all the same things.
Right.
So super creative.
Yes.
All he does is draw. Like that's all he wants to do with his whole life. So
It's okay. It's okay. They all like to do their own thing, so that's great.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
he's my best bud. You know, it's been a journey, so it's been exciting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so great to hear. Cause like, so he's an only child.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I start the episode now?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Go right in.
This is authentic. Okay, cool. So yeah, he's your best buddy. How old is he now?
He's 17.
Oh my gosh, so big. So
yeah, they get big so quickly. I don't know, it's so insane. But the thing is he had learning issues at a young age, and he didn't speak till he was like 3. So for me, I just kind of it was a really challenging early years with him, because I wasn't getting a lot of the same things that everybody else got with their kid, like sit in my lap and I want to read a book and all that other stuff. He was kind of like into his own stuff in his own little world, and it was kind of like hard. And then I had to kind of figure out, okay, well, he's going to do things differently. So then you had to kind of adjust as a parent and kind of do what you thought was right for them. So luckily, I don't really care if everybody does what I do. So I was very blessed that I kind of feel like they knew what they were doing when they gave us to each other. Like, I feel like we were matched up for a reason. Yeah. Because I was the right mom for that job. So it wound up it was a journey, but now like we're in a really cool spot. So the earlier years were difficult. And then challenging with the schools and everything else. I had to really fight for him. But now we have like a really great relationship, and he's just so awesome. So now it's really fun.
That's great. See, and that's like, honestly, everybody can say it. So I have a rough relationship with my parents that have like now healed and is what it is. And like, I don't care what they were. It all has to do with what you are now. Yeah, it's huge.
Yes, so important. I think also parents just want the best of their kids, and sometimes we don't go about it the right way or the easiest way, or we really wind up making things more difficult for the relationship. And then sometimes when you become a parent, maybe you kind of understand and like you reconnect with your parents. Or when you're an adult, you sometimes have to kind of go toe to toe with your parents to fight for what you think is right as a parent. So it's really challenging sometimes. I think parenting, I think there's a lot of stereotypes and there's a lot of things that people expect you to do. So I think it can be really challenging sometimes to just do whatever feels right for your family.
And there's so much mom shaming. Like,
yes.
and you guys, not everyone's experience is going to be your experience. Everyone is like raised off the backbone of someone else's trauma or someone else's way of thinking. And like, I said this in another interview. This is the first time in a while that we finally have the data to show, like, when I was younger, chat rooms and stuff was available. The internet was pretty accessible at that point.
Right.
But my mom didn't have that kind of stuff to say what she would do to parent me in those situations.
No, me neither.
Right. Yeah. So what do you, and now like even right now where I parent my 11-year-old, new parent your 17-year-old, that is a completely different universe on where he's at in his, being a human as a human develops, like where he's at emotionally, his hormones, like everything. He's a completely different stage over here. And when my son finally gets to where your son is, it's going to be a different world because we keep evolving so fast.
And technology moves so quickly. It's kind of funny. I was having this conversation with somebody earlier because my sister's kids are like college age. So they're like 20 and 22. And I practically raised them. And my son kind of grew up with them. And when I watched them, just seeing the way that the way girls react, and like people are at a party and they're not invited, and the way it just ruins their day. And like my son doesn't really care about social media. Like he'll use it, but like he'll put a TikTok video out and it would go huge for like Halloween, and he'll like be like, oh yeah, I'll get back to it when I get back to it. Where other kids would be like, okay, how do I keep building upon that? How do I keep, making the next video better? Or if people say something mean, he's like, nah, it's the internet. Which that is not the average mindset of a teenager who's 17.
Yeah.
Most of them be like, oh my God, that person didn't like my costume, or that person said this about me, and they'd be like devastated. So I see the difference between their age group and him. And then my other sister's kids are 9 and 11. And it's unbelievable watching the way they're so tech savvy, and like TikTok's constantly on. They're constantly like dancing in the background. They're constantly doing like the TikTok dances. So it's kind of fascinating to me to just watch the different age groups in my own family. And I try to explain this to other parents. I'm like, it's going to be so different by the time your 4-year-old is 10, or, you know, your 11-year-old is 17. Cause it's just, I think it's kind of fascinating to watch as a parent.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, the evolution of people is just way fascinating. Well, and then all the different personality types too. And
Yeah.
someone said this once, you know, you have a good product when people are using it that can't even read or speak yet. And we have babies using tablets. Like,
I know.
we have something very audience. This is, I think social media saves the world. We're just using it a little wrong. Like and that's why I think that it's important. So side note for people who don't know, I found Kristen on Gary Vee. So, but I think it's important. Sorry, I'm getting, oh, dang it. I lost it.
I know what you're saying. You're saying that social media is moving fast. It's got a lot of good things and it's got some bad things. And it's how I kind of feel like maybe you're saying is how we use it. Cause I have the same love hate with it. I think that sometimes it takes away some simple joys because you can't be as much in the moment because there's a thing to touch that phone so often. But then there's a great thing about it because like during coronavirus, it gave me the opportunity to meet so many amazing people and connect with so many people. So I have a love-hate thing within myself sometimes, you know, right. So I understand. I think I understand what you're trying to say.
Good. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate you. My viewers are like, she did it again all the time. Just it is what it is, you guys. Sometimes my brain just works that way. And so I'll be talking and I'm like, hard stop. You're about to say something that might cross that line, and I'll back up and I don't finish my sentence. And someone's probably watching me going, finish your damn sentence.
Just go for it. Who cares if they took a wrong turn? You'll figure it out. Yeah.
If I say something too, like I'll correct myself. Like I'll evolve. Right. Have you seen The Good Life? Have you seen that show yet?
No, I don't think I have. Who's on it?
Kristen Bell is on it. I don't know.
Oh yeah, with the guy that played Sam. I think he's the guy. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have not seen that show.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of where he played. I think I'm making the connection, but I'm not sure.
I think he's from Cheers. I think it might have been a guy from Cheers. Is
nice.
That guy? He played Sam? You're probably much younger than me, so now I'm aging myself. Because I don't know, you're probably like in your like mid-20s. I don't know.
No, I'm 29. Thank you.
29. All right, so you're like 20. So I'm actually 20. We are actually 20 years exact. I'm 49.
Nice. So, this is fun. Nice. Yes. This is good. Okay, so that's so fun. So what was, I want to start with me and you. What was popular when you were a girl? Like what was the boy band back then, or like music back then? What was the top?
So funny. You? Okay, so I always hated what everybody else, like when I was a little girl, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. Okay. So Michael Jackson and Prince were like the big thing. It was early MTV years. Yeah. It's back when MTV actually played videos and the VMA was a big deal. Yeah. And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day because Madonna was like Madonna and Cyndi Lauper. So there was like 2 guys, 2 girls, like those are the popular ones. And there's a variety of music. You had the big hair bands for the metal. So it was a very interesting time. Lots of like big hair and like cheesy dance videos with everybody like dancing. But Michael Jackson was like, I was always trying to do a Michael Jackson dance in the middle of the kitchen. Yeah. So that was what was big back in my years. And then in high school, the big boy band was New Kids on the Block.
Nice.
Yep. Yes. But I didn't like doing what everybody else did. So I was actually into punk rock in high school because God forbid I was like everybody else. I always had to walk to the beat of my own drum. So I was like, I knew the songs and I knew the dances, but I didn't like listen to it per se.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so good. See, and people nowadays, they'll tell me things and I'm like kind of out of the loop, or like, I kind of rebelled against it. I'm terrible at watching shows. Like I don't watch shows, especially like really good shows. I don't even get to watching them until like way later.
Way later.
Yeah. Yeah. So mom life a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Got other things to do. Right.
Yeah. I think the boy band that was popular in my day was Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. That
Yep.
was the biggest debate of my time. Is
Yes,
Backstreet
because
Boys
if you
and
like
NSYNC.
Backstreet, you didn't like NSYNC, and NSYNC didn't like Backstreet, like they were teams.
Yep.
And then they
Yeah.
melded together for a big concert like
Yeah.
years later, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, always. They and that's the funniest thing is when you finally get those celebrities to like talk about their experience and stuff, they're like,
Right.
it was for the camera. Like it was for
Right.
I mean, like
Yeah, we all got along. Right. Right.
yeah, yeah. So I mean the majority of the time. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
it's just fun. Okay. I am terrible. My point earlier was about
Right.
Kristen Bell in the show. So evolving.
Mhm.
On the show, there's a okay, so it wasn't even about Kristen Bell. I'm terrible. Tahani. I don't know the actress's name, but she was on Red Talk Table with Jada Pinkett and
Yep. Her
Huh.
mom and her daughter.
yeah. And she was talking about how there's articles and there's screenshots of her shaming women out there on Twitter because she thought she was being a feminist and she thought that she was, you know, she's telling girls like cover up, like how dare you represent us this way and this and that. And yeah. See, but like but you can come out and say that like I wasn't completely right to be online, just putting that out there. And she comes forward and she's like, I evolved. Like it doesn't even matter. And even if that stuff evolves, that's the biggest takeaway that I want someone to get out of this conversation. Like it doesn't matter where you're at on your learning curve.
Yeah.
Like, you can make things better. Like it doesn't matter. Like holy like I wasn't the nicest to girls all the time. Like
right.
But what do we do?
I think this is that's what a lot of my comedy I bring into my comedy. It's a lot of like poking fun at like the male, female, female on female. I think there's just so many like misconceptions and so much different information coming at people so rapidly. And I'm old school, so like there's certain things that I kind of agree with or don't agree with. And I don't know, I just feel like I have so many strong opinions when it comes to women sometimes and women shaming. And I think there's so many mixed messages. And it's not that it goes back to the same thing we said earlier in the show about social media. It's not that social media is the problem. It's who you have raising you around it if they're preparing you properly for it. I feel the same way about some of the female empowerment movement that's out right now, or some of the images that are presented to young women. It's not that I'm mad at the woman for doing it. I'm thinking 2 steps ahead of the ripple effect of the girl that doesn't have the mom that says, whoa, hey, you're more than this. You know, you're this and you're this. So to me, that's where I kind of, as a woman, I kind of come in to be like, hey, ladies, hey, we're more than just tits and ass. I fought through that in the 90s. Don't really want to go back there again. And I think we're kind of giving mixed messages to young women. So I'm kind of guilty of that sometimes. I don't really necessarily like finger point. I'll do it with more humor. Like, oh, hey, look at this show the other night. Woo, didn't know we were doing this, you know, and just to kind of make people think and start a dialogue.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what comedy is. Like, and comedy is the riskiest place to do it. But in all honesty, and I'm glad we touched on this because I think that there is a healthy balance between like, let's be honest, when a girl's putting herself out there and like, I'll just open myself up for like all the targets here. It's fine. This is my opinion, you guys.
Yes.
But
which is your opinion and not necessarily somebody else's. So that's what opinions are. Good.
Right. And if I offend somebody, like I'm not saying that women shouldn't be sexy sometimes. Like I feel like being sexy is great. Like sometimes it feels empowering. Like that's wonderful. But you can't really put yourself out there sexually and in sexual poses and expect not to be sexualized. Like
yes,
it goes for men too. Like men, if we look at a man with his shirt off and like all pose super sexy, like there's a difference between like a man just eating his lunch with his shirt off and then like posing sexy. There's a difference between a girl just eating the lunch with her shirt off or in her bikini and like posing sexy, which like I think it all like comes down to like the person who's looking at it, of course. But in all honesty, if we are just being sexual, like if we're putting ourselves out there sexualized, that's probably what you're gonna get. So
I know what you're saying because it's such a tricky topic to not get like lambasted when you say this, all right? And this is all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say if you teach a girl to like, okay, so like I was brought up in a different era. So I was brought up in the 70s. It was the first wave of feminist movement. Women were strong, they were smart, they were sexy, but they also like they were learning how to play in the man's world. They wanted a seat at the table, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of went through it in my young years. So I never thought that I couldn't do something because I just never thought there were boundaries just because I was a woman, because I was brought up by a single mother, house full of women. We were like, I am woman, hear me roar. So I didn't really feel like there was an issue. So for me, my mom always encouraged us to be strong, like speak up for ourselves, use our voice, and also be strong with our mind and not our body. And I can remember there was an old video on MTV and the women were fighting over a man. They were rolling all over the ground. My mother was like, shut that shit off in 2 seconds. And she's like, we do not fight over men in this house. And I was like, ooh, okay, mom. So like my mom kind of was there to kind of like be a female role model of a high level, right? Yeah. So what I'm just saying is I just feel like now I feel like there's just a lot of mixed messages, and especially like nowadays, a lot of the I don't know how to explain it without coming off as being offensive, but I'm just saying it's very confusing if you're you're on a stripper pole 1 minute and it's empowering, but then it's not, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain it. So I really feel like it's really confusing to young women, and I really feel like it's confusing to young men. So to me, I'm kind of like, wow, we're kind of giving some really confusing messages. Right. And so to me, if like, I don't think that should be your only way to be powerful. Right. I'm just saying like that shouldn't be your ownership to power. Your ownership to power should be that you have a voice, you have a mind, and you can speak up and represent yourself. Right. That's what I'm trying to say to women. Like learn your power internally before you use it externally.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Right. And no. Yeah. I get what you're saying. And like to dissect it, because I come from poverty. I come from Section 8 housing. I come from
same. I had a tough childhood. Didn't come from anything. And my mom didn't want us to get there by you. You know what I mean? And so I'm just saying, like, I think my problem is when you come from nothing and you're being taught to raise the bar and try to pull yourself out. And I'm thinking of the people that are looking like that's the quick way. I think social media now makes a lot of people think, oh, this is the quick way out. They want it to be tomorrow. Like, oh, I'm going to go on TikTok and I'm going to make this video and I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be doing this thing for a job that's maybe like a quick way out, but not everybody's going to wind up becoming, Nicki Minaj or Cardi B or you know what I mean? So like,
well, so I've seen the people that you're warning. Like I've seen what you're taught, like, even though it's not necessarily like, cause your mom, I'll be honest, I didn't have the mom that shut off the TV and said, we don't do that. I was raised in the because again, I believe that we raise each other off of like another generation. Like it just, the cycle will go and go and go. Yes. And I believe for me and my cycle, mine was having a boy. But I think that my mom and my grandma were kind of traumatized from like the girls in their family that they knew, like, they didn't have the best reputation, like, or they married, or maybe they had a decent reputation. And it was just about getting married and pleasing your man. And if you got a divorce, you were looked at bad. It's not even necessarily that you would desexualize yourself, but like that you had, because a a lot of people
that get in family.
Yeah, and like those women have you seen the show Mrs. Maisel?
Yes, I love that show.
It's my favorite show. Yeah. Like every stigma that she's beaten, I'm like, yes, cheering her on. And
you know what I think is, what I like about that show that you said that though is because I think it's kind of interesting because when you look at that show that takes place in like the late 50s going into the 60s, this is when the country was kind of changing. It's been a lot of stereotypes, and she's kind of at that age where she's from that traditional background and she's kind of getting introduced to this whole other world. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of a fascinating show because it really symbolizes a lot of the things that's going on now. So I kind of like watching sometimes because I kind of find it interesting. So I think it opens up dialogues of like women roles and all this different stuff that I think it's interesting.
Yeah. And for anyone listening who hasn't seen the show, I'll give you what actually just happens in the first episode. She ends up, the relationship with her husband doesn't work. But she's had her marriage planned out. She got her apartment above her parents, so she would have the babysitter because she knew that she wanted kids with her husband and that they
Right.
wanted to go out occasionally. Like she had it pretty well planned out.
Yeah.
Like and like this lady, it makes me laugh because it reminds me of like the honeymoon stage of when you're dating your boyfriend.
Right,
and you,
right,
like,
right.
get ready and like
Yeah.
she's in the honeymoon stage all the time. Like she makes
Right.
sure that she's fit. She makes sure that everything's like planned out.
She's like prim and proper and everything's perfect. And then
Yes.
her life just goes to shit and she jumps on stage and does comedy. Right.
Yes. But how many women go through that? And I mentioned this in another interview because a lot of things are cause and effect. And in cause and effect, we don't always get to understand the effect until it's already happening and we're already in it.
Yeah.
Especially with life. Like sometimes we buy that car and we're like, holy crap, I don't want this payment actually.
Yeah.
But when the guy was showing me it, of course I wanted the payment and it made sense.
Right. It looks so good and I wanted it. And then you're like, oh, now like the reality of having to make that payment every month, you're like, oh God, I don't really need this right now. I really probably should have said no, or I probably should have got that other one. Yeah.
And if I tell you how many people in school that I know, or you guys, I'm sorry if you feel like I'm just always chucking you under the bus, my viewers, not all my viewers, but some people from high school watch the show. But there are some ladies that had to find out afterwards that like me included, like I almost married him. Like I've always had kind of this vision. And one day it just finally clicked for me that I need to be more for me. And some of us don't start out with that female role model. So I don't think that you're like trying to tarnish women or their sexuality or exactly like what they're doing. Like sexy is sexy, but like being strong is strong. Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like you can do both, but like, be strong.
Right. I think what I just want to do is I want to build them up internally.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah.
That's just my thing. I like to empower people to know their own real power, because I think sometimes when you're using other things it's a fake power. You because a lot, like it's like that whole saying with like comedians or entertainers, laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. I think a lot of times personas are personas. I think a lot of times if we're all about the outside, a lot of times it's because we haven't really figured out the inside. And I think I've done just so much inside work at a young age that it's like something that I want to give to other people, if that makes it. So like, I want to kind of be like, no, you're special. No, you're full of gifts and you're amazing. And you don't have to take any shit, and you can speak your mind, and you can be who you want to be. And it doesn't have to be about all that other stuff, because that stuff can go in a second. So I think it's just like an inner thing that I want to empower people. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, you're not really, I don't know if that's really the best way to empower you. And I don't want that to kind of be the way that we're trying to empower everybody, because I think it's not really empower. Sometimes I feel like it's not the best way to empower, or not, maybe it's not fully power. It's like a falsy, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's some TikTok, like there's some very specific, like raunchy videos that like, especially on TikTok, that are like trend that people have redone. And
that's what I'm talking about. That's the ripple effect. I talk about ripple effect. So like, if I make a joke about something, I'm not mad at the person who made the money, who made the song. Good for you. But with TikTok now, it adds a different level. So once that song is trending, everybody's going to use that song to like trend themselves, because they're trying to get up on that, right? So that's what I worry about, because there's no age limit. I mean, there's supposed to be age limits and something, but there's not. So when you check out TikTok, you're like, oh man, like now no one's really watched them. I don't think anybody knows that this video is out. And that's what I think about. I think of the ripple. And that's just the mom and me looking out for people. Like, I just can't help it. I look out for everybody, even if you're not my kid.
Well,
so like, ooh.
Who wants their 14-year-old in a bikini and some guy watching it? Like, I mean, we can sit here and there's the debate of like, did they do anything wrong? It's a girl in a bikini having fun. It's like, okay, but who's watching it? Like, who is this for? Like, what is your intent? It all comes down to intention. I feel like everything in life comes down to it. Intention.
Yeah.
So is your intention to get attention from strangers, or is your intention to have a fun video of you and your friends?
Yeah.
Because if it's that, you can take a fun TikTok video of you and your friends and keep it private. It doesn't have to be for everybody. So I think that it all comes down to intention, and when you put it out there, as scary as it sounds, and I don't have to deal with this, luckily. I mean, I have a boy, maybe he'll be stripping on TikTok in a couple years. I don't know, but and I'll visit that bridge when I cross to it. But I said that strange. But when you grow up in poverty, even if you have a headstrong mom like that, you meet girls that don't. Like the people that I've met in poverty by far outweigh the traumatics of like hearing their stories and then meeting their parents. Like, I can only think of like literally, I'm thinking of the area and all the people that I met. And in that scenario, a lot of the time they didn't stay with their families because it was so bad.
I know, that's what I think of. And I know it seems like when people think that I'm being judgy or attacking, I'm not judging or attacking. I'm just thinking of like the other side of it. To me, I'm always one of those people that's like cause and effect, actions and choices and consequences. You know what I mean? I always play from like a ripple or the 2 steps forward. So I'm always been someone who always plays like, okay, if this is done, then what is the effect of this? And I think just because I've really been getting into social media, just trying to do my own thing, I'm more conscious of it, where a lot of people might not be as familiar what's out there or how people can find things or some of the stuff that's not good that's out there. And I think that's some stuff that I learned this year. And I got involved with some other organizations that I was kind of like really put my energy into. And I was kind of like, whoa, I didn't even know this was even a situation. So I think I was more thinking of it as that's what I'm more like the pitfalls. So that's, you know, and that's where it comes from. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be everybody's mom, but I'm just trying to say, hey, mom and dad, like if you're going to put this in their hand, you got to learn a little bit about it, because it's like putting your kid on like a 4-wheeler without making them ride a bike first with no helmet. You know what I mean? Like it can go 90 miles per hour. So you might want to do a little research into it, take a little initiative. And I just think that that's what so many parents, they're not informed. And I think the more that I learned, I was like, oh my God. So I'll call my little sister who's younger kids, like, you got to get this app on your phone. You got to do this. Do you know what this song is saying? And I'm just more conscious of it because I'm just trying to help other people kind of realize it a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, sorry to just stab at it a little. You guys, I said this again in another interview. I think it's so important to interview people who are already doing that thing. If you interview people who are famous, they'll tell you how hard it is and how to keep your mindset in check. If you interview someone who's a sex worker, they'll tell you how hard it is to keep your mindset in check. Like, we don't say these things to be like death to all stripping and all fun, but like that is a very, like, some people are doing that because that is the best option for their kid, but that doesn't mean that they don't sacrifice their mental for it.
Like 100%. And I think for me, as being a bartender for over 20 years, started in the 90s when it was kind of a different way, like, oh, hey, baby, where now that when like, that's why when I kind of look at 20 years, it's changed so much. The way like men are even afraid to even say anything offensive. It's just funny, like how men have, I feel like men have changed a lot, and they're still getting like, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, the guys that I wait on are so polite and they're so like conscious of what they say compared to what I dealt with in the 90s. I'm like, that's apples and oranges, you know? And so that's just, I think a lot of the stuff that I speak of comes from my own personal experience because I work with the public. And when you work with the public in a restaurant, there's no boundaries. There's no boundaries of what they'll say. There's no rules because they want what they want. They don't care. You're just a person to that. Like, you're not even like, you're just someone who's there to get them what they want. So sometimes you see the best or the worst out of people. You have really great people you wait on. You have really shitty people you wait on, but it really teaches you a lot about life and society and personalities. So I think I've just learned a lot of the front lines of being with the public.
Hang on 1 second. I found the source to this notification. Why is this not shutting off? OMG. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Notifications. Oh my goodness.
I know sometimes when those notifications come, you're just like, oh my gosh, shut it down. Who is messaging me? And like, you don't even know like which ones you have on sometimes because so many apps have notifications too. Yeah. You know?
So,
But one of the things I thought was interesting about going back to social media and, you know, mental sanity and doing the best. I think that's another thing that's out there. Like you know, you're going for likes, you're putting yourself out there. Like right now, we're sharing some interesting thoughts. There sometimes will be a lot of comments that come through. And I think that's what's another interesting thing. And my son is 17 and he blows me away by how well he handles it. Where you watch adults that can't even handle it as well as him. Like if people don't like his videos, he's like, yeah, it's social media. What are you gonna do? And I'm like, wow, what a great attitude. You know, it's because you just never know. Like it goes back to when you're on that phone, you just text whatever you want. You don't think anything about the fact that that's another person that you're texting to. So I think that's another fascinating aspect to social media, you know?
yeah. Yeah. Well, and I keep saying in the last interview and blah, blah, blah. So
No, I know.
in a previous interview,
Yeah.
we mentioned that it's easier to say something nastier because you're a keyboard warrior, but you're
Yep.
behind the screen. And,
Right.
and so I think that's like kind of, I don't mean to like keep coming back to this, but like I feel like that's what I originally meant to like touch base on, like evolving from like not necessarily your beliefs, because like I
Right.
understand, and you guys, I don't want people to think that I hate religion. I'm not religious myself. I just think that like I understand how people believe things what they believe, and that's totally fine. What's not okay is to like purposely go comment on somebody else's thing to tear them down, like the intention of
Right.
what you're doing. But like, oh my gosh, and I can't imagine. Do you do stand up yet, or how are you just doing like
I
talk
have
shows?
done it for like the past 2 years. I haven't been doing it since coronavirus and the lockdown. I actually got back up on stage twice after we reopened in Boston.
Nice.
So that was kind of nice to get back on stage and kind of like have like a little like brain dump, because you just had so I was like, it's just like a nice release for me to get up and do my thing. And that's what I was trying to explain to somebody the other day, like on my Instagram, I do a funny rant on Fridays. And sometimes I might pick on a celebrity or I might pick on a news story that I think is silly. And I explained to a guy the other day, I said, listen, I'm not judging. I'm just making an observation of my own personal thoughts and feelings. And it's really made to just make people chuckle and go into the weekend with a little bit of a laugh. And it also might open up a dialogue like this. You know what I mean? Maybe it will make a girl say, oh, hey, Kristen, what do you think is a better way to empower yourself? Or, oh, I did get stuck in this mindset. Or I do look at this person as a role model. And who do you think would be a better role model? What was your, you know what I mean? So everything I kind of say is to kind of like, just kind of open up, like almost like, not like a can of worms, but to open up the dialogue. Like, let's get in there. Let's dissect a little bit. Let's stir it up a little bit and open up to different ideas, thoughts, and feelings. And that's what I love about people sharing their feelings. They're not saying you're not saying this is how it is. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is my opinion or this is my experience. It doesn't mean that's your experience or your opinion. That's what makes it interesting.
Right. And I mean, do you watch Joe Rogan at all?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm all about the Joe Rogan. So
yeah, it's a great podcast. I love it. I like that there's a variety of topics, and that's kind of like I'm in the process of putting one together, and that's kind of what I want to do with mine, is just kind of open up really interesting dialogues, kind of stir up the pot. You never know what it's going to be. And I just think I think there's something that comes out of conversation. And I've just seen it over the years of being at the bar. Two people are sitting there, a topic comes up, you kind of hash it out a little bit. It might get a little bit crunchy for a few minutes, and then you kind of like, you learn, and then you say, oh, I didn't know that, or I didn't know that. And I think it's just fascinating to kind of like share stories with people.
Hang on. I don't know how this notification didn't die. I'm cutting this. Oh my goodness. How? Let me just like, I swear I cut it off at the source. Like,
yeah.
I swear I'm tech savvy. Like, where the hell?
I'm not tech savvy, so I'm impressed with you because I am learning. It's a whole new world for me.
I guess I'm not. Like, look at me over struggling. Are you kidding me? Stop writing me.
It's funny.
Notifications and sounds. It's switched. Like, I already selected this. Okay, resave. We'll see. Like, it says it's gonna go off, and like everything down over. Okay, This is the worst interview. God, I'm so
Don't worry
sorry.
about- No, it's totally fine. I roll with it. It's all good.
So yeah, I can't imagine being a bartender for that long. Like you have had to see, I was a cocktail waitress at one point.
Yeah.
I, I see, like you were already sexualized in that job. I already know you were. Like you,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've been through that. Like,
Right. I joke about it all the time. Like that's what a lot of my comedy is. It's just like different experiences, the way it was then, the way it is now. I do a lot of like now and then, because I think a lot of people have a short attention span. So we remember like right this minute, but we forget. And I think a lot of stuff that people are complaining about might have happened 20 years ago or happened 30 years ago, but like somehow like we're still talking about it now, or we want to fix it now. And I'm like, well, that was a different time, different era, different shit, and I don't know. So a lot of the stuff I talk about is like, I'm just very direct. So I don't have a problem, because if someone says something to me sexually, I'm gonna give it right back to them. And then they go, ooh, and it kind of freaks them out. They're like, oh, you don't like it, do you? And then they kind of like laugh, and then they high five you, and then they become like your buddy. So I think there's just different ways to kind of handle it.
yeah. Oh, completely. and I think that kind of shows how your son is handling social media now. Like obviously, what I meant to kind of touch on earlier is that I met you in the pandemic, through Gary Vee. That's how we
Yeah.
connected. So that's a great example of how social media is great and empowering and like
Right.
such a positive tool in that sense. And I can't help but think that your son's mindset with what he has with social media, it has to come from his mom and the influencers did you just stumble upon Gary? Have you been following Gary?
Oh, that's an interesting story. So what happened was, I used to watch my sister's kids 5 days a week when they were little, and I always bartended, so I was like their nanny. I worked nights, and then my son came along, so then like the three of them would be together all the time. And then he had learning issues, so I had to switch schools and drive him like 5 towns away for a couple of years, and I couldn't be there every day for them anymore. But I didn't want to leave them high and dry without
So
like
hard.
that like mom's like those like words of wisdom. So I started like this text message Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays to kind of inspire them and keep teaching them like lessons. And it kind of grew to a whole bunch of friends in it. So like 45 kids in it. And I stumbled upon a Gary quote one day, and I was like, oh, who is this guy? Right. And I was like, he talks like me, thinks like me. I got to meet him. So like 3 years ago, I just started diving into his content. He was going to be in Boston. I just showed up and introduced myself to him. And then for 3 years, I've just been like DMing and trying to like get in front of him again. And when the pandemic started, I was like, all right, I'm out of work for 30 days. I'm going to try to do something positive. I've always wanted to maybe write a book. I'm going to try to sit down and get my thoughts on paper. And he went live one morning. He's like, hey, I'm going to do this show every morning. Everybody's going to be able to call in and do a question with me. I was like, let's go. I'm going to get on this damn thing. So I kept messaging. And then one day I got the email back. It says, you're going on tomorrow. And I went on, and then he challenged me to do a show. So then like that. So I had a talk with him back in April. And then I started going live 5 nights a week on Instagram. And I just started doing like a nightly talk show all through the pandemic. And so I was kind of like everybody's 1 hour away from the news cycle. I kind of kept everybody occupied for like 1 hour a day. And I kind of built up like a little thing. And then when I went back to work, I just kept it live on Wednesdays. And Gary just sometimes will repost it. And when he reposts it, it's kind of like I find new people every couple of months. He might put a little clip out, and people are like, oh, I just found you on Gary. And I'm like, oh, he must have reposted recently because I got a bunch of new friends. So, and that's kind of how that went. And that's so I've been on like this little journey right now.
That's so cute. I love that.
Thank you.
That's very, I tell people it's very Gary Vee of you. That's very Gary Vee of Gary.
Yeah.
Like very pay it forward of him.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I just think that there's, I know that I like to help people. I know I like to talk, but I wasn't really sure how to get started on certain things. Like I'm not tech savvy. So I kept overthinking of it. Like, how do I do a podcast? And then looking at all the equipment was just like, oh, I can't even think of like editing and all that. Like, it just seems so like overwhelming to me, and then like speaking, a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to speak about? Like everybody always want to put you in like a niche, like and I don't do well with niches, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Look at my show.
I'm just like, I like people. I don't like boxes. I've never liked boxes, so you can't put me in one. So I was just always struggling. And that night he was like, go live tonight. And I was like, okay. And then I just IG live, just press go. And that's what I've been doing since. So it was kind of the kick in the ass that I needed.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. And now you've got
Yeah.
like 10,000 followers on your Instagram now.
And that all came from him, which is kind of crazy. Like I had 1,000, and then being on that show, 1,000 people followed me that day. But then he put me on his Instagram story, and my Instagram just blew up. And then people started tuning into the show, and I think they just kind of stuck with me because I came on every night. And I think consistency and just being an everyday person, that they saw me on a Thursday, then saw me live on that Thursday night, and I've been going since. So I think it's just a lot of people just kind of been on the journey with me, which has been really fun.
Yeah. No, consistency is key.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you're doing, I mean, I hope everyone kind of takes value from this, but especially when you're doing something new, you can't even figure out if you're bad at it until you consistently do it. I feel.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's part of the journey. I think, isn't that what's kind of exciting about doing something new? Like, it's kind of nice to go back and look at the early ones and be like, oh God, like that was so, like, you know, if I go back and watch like the first time I jumped on stage doing comedy, I'm like, oh my God, I said like 400 times. And then as you watch your videos, you're like, oh, I'm getting better. Or like when I first started doing the show, I didn't know, I wasn't really sure what the theme was going to be. I kind of developed it as it went along. And now like I'm learning more about interviewing and having conversations. So you kind of get different skill sets as you go along. It's kind of fun to kind of learn new skills.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've definitely learned that I explore all your notifications before you come back. I have like 50 interviews. Like you think I know that before hopping on here, but yeah, you learn as you go.
It's exactly. It's, you know, but nothing's perfect either. So I think sometimes when things are messy or whatever, I think that's kind of part of it. And I think it's kind of, people go, oh, that makes me feel more, I don't know, comfortable, that it's not all, I just hate fake. I like real. I like authentic. I don't care if it's a little messy. And I think there's been some nights when you're live that the technology isn't working with you, and you'll lose volume, or you won't be able to see the person that good. And you just got to kind of roll through it. And people kind of take the journey with you. So I think there's something that makes people say, oh, she didn't get nervous. She didn't shut off. She just kind of kept bringing the person. You know what I mean? So I think there's something about seeing the messiness of it that helps other people be like, oh, it's okay if it's not perfect.
Yes. Yeah. Everything looks too Instagram highlighted, perfecty, filter. Like,
yeah.
I'm not even going to edit my bleeps out. All the notifications, we're going to keep all of it in there.
Keep that in, keep all that imperfection in. It's good. It's good. It's because it shows you that that's what's, I don't know, I think that's what's life. I think that's what makes life interesting, is the tough stuff. And the, like, especially this year, this has been a year of just punching people in the face, like repeatedly, you know, and either you learn to just kind of like bob and weave a little bit, or you're gonna be banged up real good. So I think that's what I've just been trying to help people kind of push through it, and just try to kind of keep them going. Yeah. And just say, hey, you know, we'll be okay. You're gonna just keep going. You're just gonna keep going, and then eventually, hopefully, you learn something from this year. Maybe you got a couple bumps and bruises, but maybe you'll be a little bit stronger because of it. So yeah, I've had to. That's for sure. It's been a tough year. It's, you know, just trying to get through some of the things, and that's what you learn.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you watched our intro video. So we used to be an event company. Like we were going to host an event, and we were going to host Elizabeth Smart, and like we were, but no, not this year. Pandemic. No, nobody's hosting nothing. Like,
yeah. So is that how? So you went virtual because of that? Is that how you kind of adapted?
Yeah. Oh, and I wasn't the face of the company either. Like there was somebody else doing other things. There were like, I was the behind the scenes guy. There was a team. Yeah. Like I just wanted to be the idea guy, the endorser guy. Like I was not going to be that face guy.
That person. And now you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of interesting. Have you enjoyed it? Like
so I've always been the person that people call when they're upset. I feel like I've always kind of been that. And I feel like I've been pretty active on like my social media for like my family and friends and stuff, but it's such a completely different switch when you know strangers are watching you. Yeah. It's just not the same. So it was really hard to swallow at first. Not to be dramatic, but even at one point because again, I believe in asking people, you know, who's done this. Like I looked up celebrities talking about why they wouldn't become famous. I looked up how many celebrities and YouTubers take themselves out. Like I was really looking into it before I considered this. And I sat down with my family and I was like, you know, I'm prepared that every inch and cranny of my life could be possibly revealed. And I was like, I'm going to write a book. And so I started to write because, you know, someone can turn the narration of your story, whatever, which
They
way
want.
they want. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to acknowledge where I went wrong, and just what the truth is of me. And so that was something that I worked on. I don't even think that I'm ever going to publish it. Maybe, but like I wanted to write something for me, just to
Yeah.
get it out.
That's awesome, because then it's kind of like, it's something that you can look back and you can kind of like reflect upon your story. And then if you decide that you do want to share it, you share it. And I think because you just never know who you're going to help.
Right.
And it's funny that you say that, because when I lived in New York and I originally thought I wanted to be an actress, one of the reasons I didn't pursue it is back to the earlier conversation we have about the shady business. There was a lot of unsavory characters. There was a lot of bullshit. I don't play games. I'm me. I'm a straight shooter. And I was just like, you know what? I just don't think this is the industry for me. And that's why I went back to Boston, and I just became back to being a bartender, and I got married. I was really turned off by that business. And what has attracted me back to going on screen now and trying to build your brand is because you can do it your way now, you
Right.
know, and the people that like you are going to like you, and the people that don't, and that's okay. And that's what I say to people all the time. I go, hey, listen, I'm Kristen. I'm gonna cheer you on, but I'm also not gonna like always say the things that you agree upon. And if you like me, that's great. If you're not a fan of me, that's okay. You don't have to hang out with me. There's plenty of other people that are gonna like tell you what you want to hear. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna hold back my feelings on things because it might be hurt your feelings for today. I just can't help it. Like if I feel something passionately, or I'm interested in a topic, I'm going to talk about it.
Right.
And hopefully like somebody learns something. Maybe somebody has a commonality. And so I think that that's what's kind of interesting about putting yourself out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and how many talk shows did we grow up watching that we knew that it was filtered because of their sponsors or because of something that was going on that just
Yes.
we talked about? Like, let's talk about sex trafficking. Let's talk
Yeah.
about these things that are actually freaking happening.
Yes.
All
That's
the
one of my
time.
things that I got really involved in this year. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's one of the things that I started thinking about. And I think that's kind of why I think cause and effect when it comes to like the female stuff. Because I don't think a lot of people realize how prevalent it is and how in depth it is into the social media aspect. A lot of people don't know how much it's just right under everybody's nose. So to me, when I found out the statistics, I was blown away. And I want to share more, but it's so funny because it's a topic that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to touch it. And I'm like, it's crazy. But in July, I made a whole video about it. And I said, hey, everybody, I know I normally talk about happy stuff, but today we're going to talk about something that I want to bring awareness to. It's a specific day, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people were really receptive to it. And they say, Kristen, thank you. I didn't know, you know, but it's hard because you're like, okay, everyone's used to like me laughing and joking and kind of like picking you up. But there's certain topics that I kind of want to bring awareness to. So if I find a guest that can open up the conversation on a certain topic, it might be a heavier night tonight. And hey, everybody, it might be a heavy night tonight. If I have a show about suicide, if I have a show about violence, it might be just something that's that person's story. Yeah. And maybe somebody in the audience that's watching that night is like, thank you, I needed that message today. So that's what I go by. I don't go by if it makes everybody else happy. I go by what feels right in my gut. And if I can possibly help somebody else, because it's about the ripples.
Yeah, exactly. I had to expect, because my story directly impedes on what some people have done to me, and because I was so young when certain things happened, or I seriously believe that suicide is the pandemic that is like has been around forever. And the males, like, you guys, the males are killing themselves. Like, I mean, everyone's doing it, of course, but like the rate, if we actually look at it, holy crap. And it's just, the news doesn't want to deal with it.
We just started out in November. November is like the month that you normally, like, everybody always grows their beard at the bar. Everyone always has a beard in November because it's the month for men's mental health. And, you know, and on one of my shows, I had a couple guys.
Is that what that's for?
Yeah, November is like men's mental health awareness month. So I think it's called Movember or November. You don't shave. I forget the actual name of it. I'm going to butcher it right now. I don't want to, I'm saying it wrong, but I know it is something for it. So it's kind of like, you know, the pink, breast cancer awareness is the pink. They do the beards in November. So it's like No Shave November. I forget what it's called, but that's what it's supposed to be.
No, that's what it is.
It's supposed to open up the dialogue.
We're all just trying to be a gang of of beard.
And I think that's interesting, and I have done shows about that because I have lost people that way, and it's so devastating. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's so hard talking about the pandemic right now, because there's so many many things that are going on that are just horrific through this. And it's like, but if you talk about it, people think that you're being insensitive to the pandemic. Like, my owners just shut their bar down for the winter. They just closed a business. They've been in business for 12 years to see if they can make it back in the spring. And then it was funny how people, like, if you're talking about that and saying that this is really hard, people think that you're not being sensitive to the pandemic. So it's been really fascinating. And I'm just always like, hey, everybody, I'm going to talk about it today. Like, this is just my experience. And so I just try to share from my own point of view what I've been through this year.
Yeah.
Waiting on people, dealing with the public through it, watching the way different people are reacting to it, watching the fear that's kind of coming in, watching the way that people are afraid to live. I just think there's a lot of ripples that we don't even know the full effects. And I think it's kind of interesting.
Huge. And we had stumbled across a video of a man that was talking about how the pandemic took his son away. And I think this was in April. And the son had to cancel his favorite birthday party. I'm just gonna cry. Like, I can't even talk about it.
No, I know. Right.
It sucks. And there's a lot of other factors that go, and even more so, this is my opinion, think what you want, but I don't think that the economy should have been shut down. Like, I think that is too far. I have seen some of my favorite mom and pop shops that
it's
and when you shut down, like, these are the people that then go work at McDonald's or then go work at Smith's, and then we're saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be living off minimum wage because that's what you were supposed to do as a teenager.
Yeah, it's a real tricky topic.
Yeah.
And it's something I kind of want to talk about because I've seen it and I've lived it. Like, and to watch, like, somebody was kind of really attacking my owner like the last weekend after he shared like a story on like a news article. And I was kind of like, I looked at the lady like, wow, man, like, I don't know how you would feel if you were kicked out. Like, if you had a house that you pay a mortgage on, but you had to go rent a hotel for 7 months, like, that would be an exorbitant cost for you. I just don't think that we're really stopping to think of the emotional or the compassionate side of the ripples of it. We're just so focused on this. Like, I just think that we don't have the capacity to think of multiple storylines at the same time. So we have this one thing that we're upset about, this one thing that we think that we have to do for everybody. And everyone's like, that's what we have to do. And it's like, but wait, what about this person, and this person? And what about this problem, this problem, this problem? Because they're attached. And then if you try to bring up those topics, they will just annihilate you. And I'm like, listen, you can't just annihilate somebody. This is someone's experience. And I did get COVID in August. And, I was very lucky. I had a very mild case. My husband didn't get it. My coworkers didn't get it. But the pressure and the mental pressure put on me was really messed me up a little bit, because I felt so, you feel alienated. You're in a room by yourself. You feel like you let other people down because then your job has to close for a couple of days and get cleaned and make sure everybody's safe. My husband couldn't go to work, even though he was negative. And so you just feel like it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're not even talking about the mental portion of it. So I really feel like there's going to be so many people that are going to need so much after this and so much during it. So all I say to people is like, listen, all I can do when I come on at night is try to bring some joy, try to lift people up, because people are friggin' really struggling right now. And if I can make one person smile, if I can make one person feel better today, then that's all I'm trying to do. I'm sorry if you're mad if I'm happy. I'm sorry if you're mad if I smile, but I can't be depressed. So if I get depressed, it's bad for me. I won't want to get out of bed, and I just can't live like that. So in this times like this, I have to pull myself up, and I have to pull people with me because it makes me keep going.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Completely. And I feel like the people who were, for me to get through my depression and my whole event got shut down. Like, that was not easy on me, that I literally had to help all of my team. Like, hey, all the jobs that you planned on doing, don't
Not
do
there.
it. Yeah. None of them were there. Oh, I felt so bad. And in that,
you feel the pressure, right? You let people down. You feel like you let them down.
yeah.
You didn't. It's the situation. But
Right.
when you're the person who's employing people, you're the person who's in charge of a team, there's like a level of like pressure you feel on that.
Yeah.
You
Oh, and I
know?
just go like this. I just
Yeah.
like, I'm just weighted down. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the only thing I have people come at me and they're like, oh, well, because I would say, okay, well, I don't have cancer. I have running water. I have all these, like, I would just name things that I'm grateful for. And then I
Right.
would be met with some friends that are like, oh, but you can't just think that way. That's toxic positivity. Sometimes for me, being grateful, like call it toxic positivity, all you
Yeah.
want to. I call it being grateful. And
Yeah.
I cannot get through my darkest days. Like my brain is so smart and
Yeah.
rambling and it's just going to do whatever the hell it wants to do. And
Yeah.
even though like I know the pandemic is not my fault, like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
look at my sales, like my numbers speak for itself. Look at
Yeah.
my all my workers that I had to say like sorry, we're not
Right.
doing anything. Like
Right.
those situations, like I'm grieving and it doesn't matter because when I'm grieving, the only thing I can do is go, well, at least I have this. And it's all I can do. And you guys, like I really want my viewers to wrap their head around like doing what's best for you is the
Okay.
only thing to do.
Yeah. It's all you can do right now because, you know, that's when it goes back to your experience is your experience. And I think a lot of people want everybody to have the same experience right now. So if you're sharing how the pandemic affected you, it doesn't mean that you're not sensitive to the situation. You're just saying, for me, it affected me this way.
Right.
Everybody is going to have a different story to tell on this. And to think that everybody has one story to tell is just not the way the world works. It's not the way humans work. So I think that we really, if we're going to talk about compassion and doing what's right for people, maybe doing what's right for people is allowing other people to have their mourning for whatever they're mourning from this situation and help them get through it instead of villainizing them because they had a hard time that they lost their livelihood. I mean, losing your livelihood. I just think that for me, I can bartend, I can waitress, I know how to hustle, I know how to work 3 jobs. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. So when the situation hit Boston and I was like, and I could see that my owners, I thought the winter was going to be difficult for us. I got a second job. I worked 2 jobs for a little while. I'm like, I'm going to be here for them, but I'm also going to be prepared in case the ball drops. Right.
Yeah.
That's what I did. But for me, I had emotional scarring watching them watch their livelihood that they put their life into for the past 12 years slowly just die in front of you and have to close for a couple months to see what they can do to try to save the business. Do you know what I mean? So if you haven't experienced that, you can't really understand it. But don't tell me that I'm not being sensitive because I feel bad for them or I'm upset, you know? So I think we have to let people feel their feelings and share their stories without judging their stories because it's their story.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and again, like you have a lot of like you're speaking from your, I mean, you just said that from your platform, from your experience, from Kristen, like that is
right.
What's going on. And you guys, like, that doesn't mean like, it's really dangerous. Like, here's a good example. If somebody tells me to just feel my feelings right now, do you guys know what I do in my feelings? I lay in bed. Like, I don't do anything healthy for me when I like feel my feelings. And if you tell me to do that during a work day or something, and I'm really on that edge of depressed, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should listen to them. Like, it's not good for me to hear that. So what I do is I time block and I boss babe my stuff out and I plan just free time because I know I'm about to have a breakdown, but I have to plan when to have that breakdown. Now that might sound a little unhealthy to some people, but that is what keeps me mentally going because either way, I know I'm going to get to 4 or 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And if I didn't get everything done up here that I was supposed to, and I'm having my breakdown during my breakdown time, but I've also had it up here when I was supposed to be doing stuff time.
Right.
This is not good. And like, obviously there's scenarios like, say you found out your pet just died. Like some things get canceled. Some things take your time to have your breakdown. Like that's fine. But like life is dramatic and life is freaking hard sometimes.
It is.
And
I think that's what I get so upset about is we try to tell everybody that life is fair and it's easy and it's rainbows and sunshine and it's so opposite. And I think the reason that I can kind of deal with certain things is because I've had some hard times and I have just a simplistic mindset of like what works for me and I kind of know me. And I think that I'm positive, but I'm also a realist. So I think when you're positive and and you live in reality, you understand that there's ugliness. You understand there's bad. You understand that there's evil. So if you are aware of that, it's almost like you're kind of like when the shit hits, you're like, yep, there's that shit that's out there. And I think that so many people want to be like, no, 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 everything's great. Oh my God, everything's perfect. And you're not prepared for when you see that when you come around the corner, that ugly thing's right there because you're like, oh my God, what is that? It's like, yeah, it's always been there. So I think we should better prepare people for the good and the bad and help people learn how to cope. If we were teaching people some coping skills and some ways to communicate or process information, I think we'd be a lot better off, but we don't talk about that. We want to stop the problems, but you can't. It's the world, it's the life, it's the people. You can't make everybody be one thing. So it's just trying to create this fake environment that just isn't gonna work, you know?
And I want your opinion on this. I said this to somebody the other day. I feel like it's easier to appreciate what I have because I've had nothing.
Yes, I say it all the time. I think I even said that on Gary. Said I'd rather be broke and be me than be rich and be somebody else. And like I said on somebody else's show one time, I said, if you have stuff and you lose stuff, you realize you don't need stuff. So for me, when my parents got divorced in first grade, we went from a big house and we lost everything. I went to a 2-bedroom apartment with nothing. And for me, my mom, I kind of realized like, wow, all those people have a lot of stuff, but they're not happier. We're happy in our little house with my mom and my 2 sisters. So to me, it was about us. It was about the people, not the stuff. And then years later, when my husband and I had a fire and we lost all our stuff again, I was like, fuck stuff. I don't need it. Because it doesn't, all it is a bill. All it is extra shit you got to pay for. All it, like, it's just more stuff in a closet, So to me, I'm just like, keep it simple. I'm about simplicity. So I totally agree with you on that.
I love that. Yeah. I ran across a YouTuber one time and she was talking about how she wanted to go out more with her friends and do more things. And she's like, so I cut out the thing that was my biggest expense, rent. I live in my car now. And she just talks about this full lifestyle that she had. And like, you guys, especially
cool.
People with like 5 kids, that's probably not the most feasible thing for you
right.
to up and do. And living in your car is a little risky sometimes. But yeah, like when you can wrap your head around just the things, and to pick on Gary Vee first, or his mom in particular, his mom, like she lost both her parents before she was like 8.
Right.
Like, holy crap. I couldn't imagine living that. Like I remember a lot from 8. Like that would have been very traumatizing.
Yeah. I think a lot, like you're going back to like celebrating what you have instead of what you don't have. It's not that you're being naive about your gratitude, but I think if people celebrated like what they're blessed with instead of what they don't have, they'd have a completely different mindset. It's always been my mindset. And I'm like, do I have everything? No. And and I always laugh because when it goes to success, so especially on social media, everyone's got FOMO or they're comparing themselves to other people. And I say to people all the time, like, maybe people don't find me successful. I don't own a house and I'm a bartender. Maybe that's not successful to them, but to me, I feel successful because I'm happy and I'm who I want to be. And I live by the rules that I want to live by. And I treat people the way I want to be treated. So to me, I think I'm successful, but I think that's why success should really be based on what you think is successful, not what everybody else thinks is successful.
Yeah. You guys, I did the weirdest thing the other day. This is going to be really weird that I align this with success, but I do. So I believe being self-employed and making my own schedule is very important right now, especially because, and not blaming my kids. It's not that it is their fault. It is that I want to be here for my son and be able to pick him up and have that flexible schedule.
Right.
Because you can't work full time while your kids go to school. By the time you go to work, it's like 5 hours and you're supposed to go get them again. So, anyways, something happened the other day. My neighbor's cat got hit by a car. And this is when like because I've been having a big battle with like, am I too much as a person as far as like that I help people too much or that I care too much? Am I too empathic, basically?
Yeah, well, it happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that sometimes I do dabble with that line, honestly.
Yeah.
But I really, all I want to do in life is help. Like that's all I've ever wanted to do. And in this particular morning, the cat got hit. Somebody came to my house and thought that it was my cat. And I told her, no, it's my neighbor's cat. But my neighbor has like 6 kids. This is the morning the kids are getting ready for school. And I just immediately am like, I'm not going to go let this mom go get this cat off the road and all of her kids. Like,
right.
And I did, like, I've never went and, I'm so sorry, I'm so gross. I've never went and picked up an animal that's been killed before off the road. Like I would, like, I don't know what like instinctively got me in this drive, but I was like, I can't do it. Just the thought of her kids being on their way to school and that ruining their day. Just
yeah, it would. Yeah, that's really sweet. Yeah.
It was really great. I don't know, like I don't really recommend it. Like, but at the same time, like it was like a bad like 6 seconds because like of course I'm bawling and I'm just apologizing to. I loved the neighbor cat. He always came and visited, and that was like my outside kitty, and we're great. Yeah, but like imagine like if I'm feeling that grief, imagine what they're going to, and that's what she said. Like she thanked me so much. She's like, I didn't want to do it. That's my husband's favorite cat. I know he didn't want to do it. So I saved them a lot of grief that I think was okay for me to bear and not give to them. And I'm thankful that I'm self-employed enough to do that and that I am that weird to do that.
No, that's awesome. I think that's the benefits. And I think that's what you have to kind of think of like in life. I think that's a good point that you want to be with your son. And I think that's one of the reasons I bartended as long as I did, because it gave me the flexibility to be home with my son during the day and then go to work at night. So my husband would do the nights and I would do the days. So we were kind of like a team, and it worked well. And I'm happy that I had that opportunity because I got to do so much more with him than having to feel like I'm at work all day and missing all this stuff and then like trying to catch up at night, you know? So it's interesting. Everyone does what works best. There's no right way, moms.
Yes.
Oh, it's like whatever works for you in your home, you know, so it's okay.
Yeah. And stop your mom shaming. We're sick of your crap.
Yes. Yeah.
We're done with
shame
you.
yourself. Yeah.
Go shame yourself.
Do the best you can.
Go unshame yourself. Go write nice things on your mirror.
Right. That's always a good one. I always like that one.
Yeah, I do too. I need to do it more often. I feel like it'd be, well, mine would be like, don't help more neighbors today. We already helped one. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's part of being a giver though. You know, like being a giver, you just want to help everybody. And then sometimes you have to check yourself because you can deplete yourself. So it's important to kind of like do a little check-in every once in a while. And that's what I try to do yearly. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I have to make a sacrifice. Like I can't do everything. And like, that was the hard thing when I had to give up my nieces. I had to do what was right for my son. And I was like, I can't be everywhere. Yeah. So you just kind of, you make your choices every once in a while.
Yeah, that's hard. But there's a lot goes with that. And you know what, Kristen? So we're at our time, but I'd love to invite you back on the show. I think you're great.
Yeah, anytime. I always love having conversations.
So do me a favor, shout out your Instagram for anybody that's just listening.
Oh yeah, thank you. So it's Kristen being Kristen, Kristin, Being Kristin. And I do a live IG talk show on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern, a variety of people. And then if you follow me there, you'll get a little inspiration, a little motivation, a little kick in the ass. It's a little combination, a little heart, humor, and sass. You never know what you're going to get. I like it. And anything else, anything new coming on the horizon will be posted there.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I love your accent, by the way.
Thank you.
I want you to say something like very bartender, like very Boston-y.
Let's see. Need a beer and I'll see you later.
Nice. Thank you. That warmed me.
You like that?
You like it. All right. Thank you so much, Kristen. All right. We'll talk to you later. Have a good night.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
Bye.